Welcome back to another episode of Every Degree Matters. I'm your host Saffran Minhar. We saw finally we got 2 weeks of ceasefire between United States and America. We also saw President Trump posting on Truth Social saying that he's going to wipe out a whole generation, a whole population in Iran. We also saw the big New York Times article revealing that Benjamin Netanyahu and the IDF convinced President Trump to go and attack Iran, but it was a false conviction that they have done because they didn't feel like it was on lies. Was it on lies? So we're going to talk about that. We also saw someone who got arrested and sentenced to 15 years under the name of Jasveen Sangha for the death of the famous legendary actor Matthew Perry for supplying him with Ketamine Queen. So they've been sentenced to death. Sentenced to prison for 15 years. So we'll talk about all those things, and we also saw the legendary Dave Lopes pass away from Dodgers. What do you call the Dodgers legend in at the age of 80. We also saw on the market that France has brought back its 129 tons of gold back to Paris from New York. So we'll talk about all this. Let's get to the show. And you wanna write it down? Would it kill you just to listen? And you wanna sell it out with the words out of your position. Hold on, and you wanna see the break of dawn. Brush your hair back from your face. You won't see me when I'm excited. Thank you for joining Every Degree Matters. First, let's talk about the ceasefire agreement between America, United States, and Israel. So on Easter Sunday, if you all remember, President Trump posted saying that all hell will break in Iran, and said praise to Allah, and he said all kinds of nonsense and bonkers. And then on Monday morning or Tuesday morning, he said he's going to wipe out a whole civilization, including the entire people of Iran. A genocidal rhetoric saying that he's going to, if they don't sign up a deal on the night of Tuesday around 8 p.m., kind of the prime time, you know what I'm saying? So then, after back and forth of negotiation, Pakistan involved. I think China got involved. Pakistan got involved and said, "Okay, let's have a 2 weeks ceasefire agreement." Then, along with having a negotiation date set up, which J.D. Vance, Jared Kushner, and Steve Witkoff are on their way to Pakistan to meet them on tomorrow, on Friday. So let's see how this goes on. But I also heard that they have been breach of the ceasefire agreement between, I think Israel breached it, Iran breached it, and I don't think there's a real ceasefire, even though they said one has happened on Tuesday. And we also saw the leak of the New York Times article that talks about how, like in detail, it talks about that how Benjamin Netanyahu and the IDF chief were on the Situation Room. Netanyahu was in person, and the IDF chief was there virtually joining, and it clearly explained how maybe United States was lied into going into this war, assuming that when taking out the leader or the first tier, second tier, third tier, and the fourth tier in the Ayatollahs, they will be able to control, or the regime will change. But unfortunately, the regime didn't change, and the regime is still intact. They become more powerful, and we have spent a lot of money to this war that never ended. And the 10-point agreement that the United States and Iran are trying to agree are the agreements that will help Iran boost its economy, help them rebuild everything. And for the first time in the history of mankind, we have to pay $2 million to cross a ship on the Strait of Hormuz, which wasn't even in there 45 days ago. Like, what the hell? Like, it's just, crazy that we went to this war on the assumption of Benjamin Netanyahu, who is also waiting his own trials in Israel, that he has to be accounted for what has happened to him for bribery charges and all those charges. And then in the midst he came in, he convinced America, saying that let's go into this war. The same exact playbook they did it in Iraq, in Libya, in Syria. What has happened? Look at now, after 45 days, we are going back to the circle one. The Ayatollahs are intact. They are still controlling the regime. We're going to pay extra money, $2 million, I heard, for every ship that passes through the Strait of Hormuz, that will be shared between Iran and Oman. And then they will have all sanctions lifted. What do you mean by this? And it's just so crazy. And today, he had the nerves to go and post and say Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, and Alex Jones are crazy and they are not mega anymore. Like, what the F? Like, I don't understand. These people helped him elect the presidency in 2024. He's so ungrateful, I think, at this point. And I also, at this point, he feels like he don't need them. I also feel like maybe he at the end of the day, he's someone he wants attention, right? So I supported him. He was the best choice till now, between Kamala and Trump. I mean, Kamala and him. But now it seems like he's going and dividing the Republican caucus, the mega caucus that stood together. And I think it's going to cost the Republicans the 2026 midterms that are going to happen in November, and then the 2028 presidential election, which is going to be crazy. These people have some courtesy. Like the day before the election, you go and hug Megyn Kelly, and you have this whole fantasy. Like you guys had a great public campaign and the victory speech, and now all of a sudden, once you don't need them, you just throw them under the bus. Like, I hope all these people who are listening to this, or at least people who the Americans, like, think for a second who voted for him. Like, he just betrayed the entire population, entire demographic of people that he voted, that he got elected, and he thinks that he can survive with these 50 plus old Republicans who are always going to be the conservative. Let's see how this plays out in 2026. Let's see how it plays out in 2028. And he's also putting his own family in jeopardy, because everybody is going to hate them as well. Like we also start hate the Bidens for the stuff they did with Russia and all the other things. So you got to be very, very careful on what you say. Now you don't need them, and they have a big army, and he's starting to complain they're low IQ people. I just don't understand. And on the other hand, we have this neutral, influencers who don't want to say anything. They are just like, oh yeah, 100% weight, like the Austin of the world, or the Laura Loomis of the world. Trying to figure out what would just be, nice. I think if he can do that to them that elected him, help him get elected, I'm pretty sure it's also going to come to you one day. Don't forget that. It's not always them, and you are laughing on the other side. When it comes to your doorstep and he kicks you all out of the team, then you will know. Alex Jones, that guy went to prison for him. Like, he's just I don't know what to talk about this, but I don't think it was, first of all, on the post that he did on Ukraine, on Iran, that he's going to wipe out a whole population, civilization. That wasn't right. It was not presidential. He shouldn't have done it. And then there was no difference between the Iranians chanting death to America and then him going back and saying, he will wipe out a whole civilization. Like, where is the difference? Where is the moral value of America? Like, what will it happen once you leave the office, and once they all see, like, okay, so how can we repair the moral damage that we have done as America as a whole country to the outside world? People ain't gonna understand that. People think they voted for them, and we voted for you. So people voted for him. So that's just like, it's just crazy to look at all those things happen. And it was also sad. I also thought he might be the president that will change everything and be a pro, peace ticket and not have long wars. And now I also saw the post from starting from December 2026, we will have draft. Everybody will be drafted for the military between the age of 15 and 25. Maybe they're planning for a ground invasion in the end of December. I don't know. This could be like a break off time and then think about what's going to happen. And listen, the other point that I always keep telling people, that what is he going to lose? Nothing. He doesn't care about JD Vance. He doesn't care about the Republican Party. He doesn't care about anyone. I mean, he is a celebrity. He cares about him and his fame. And he doesn't even give a damn about whether they get elected in 26 or 2028. He will be like, yeah, I was becoming 2 times president. He gets always brags about what small things that he has done. He'll keep on bragging, and he's 80 years old. Come on. I don't know how long he's got years in left. Maybe 10, maybe 15. So I think he's completely being selfish at this point here, and I hope people around him. I think this is the right time. If JD Vance wants to become the president, if Marco Rubio wants to become the president, I think they should revoke the 25th Amendment. They should revoke the 25th Amendment and kick him out of the office and say, we finally ended the war, and then maybe they have a shot of becoming the president in 2028. I think that could be the only pathway I see here. At this stage, they have lost the youth vote. They have lost the independence vote. Remember, in this country, there is 40% Democrats, 40% conservatives. Like the liberals and the conservatives are 40-40. Sometimes 39 and it's 42. And then 20%, it's what decides who becomes the president. And he just lost that 20%. And then maybe he will lose more from within the conservative movement, and that will lead to a big Democratic win like Newsom, which will be a disaster in terms of a lot of ways. But at this point, when you look at all these things, people might be more inclined to Newsom, because someone who is presidential or at least could behave himself and also not mess up everything like he messes up. Basically, it feels like he's running a TV show. Like on prime time, he says something. Like he always wants attention. Like it's just like you cannot be a president and want to have attention 24/7. That ain't going to happen. So I don't know what's going to happen. It's just really sad for all of them supported him. I got a lot of backlash for supporting him. I trusted him, saying that he could bring peace and everything. But in the end, all we got was the roller coaster ride of the part 2 of Trump era, which, the part 1, the continuation of part 1 of the first presidency. And it's just crazy. And the New York Times articles articulates so much so how so much things happened, like from who was sitting on the table. Kind of was like, when I read that, it felt like America and United States was equal. Like, what the hell? We ain't not equal. We are a superpower country in the world. So that's something we got to be really careful about. And I don't know what to say. I think it's going to cost the Republicans the midterms and the 2028 election. So good luck with it and trying to get elected again, maybe for the next 8 years. I said that when the Republicans won. Good luck for the Democrats getting elected in the next 8 years. But I also feel like moving forward, a presidency might only be for 4 years. I kind of feel that America is like always going to change back and forth, and this could lead into a very bad situation where it could be an unstable country and move towards more like a third world country, because no empire is immune to anything in this world, and we are also killing ourselves because of the decisions that we are making that ain't going to lead to good outcomes. So we have to be very careful if we don't have a continuity of government or a presidency for 8 years so they can get all the things done. Or it could also be a good thing that, when you have every 4 years, it flips back and forth and back and forth. They all got 4 years to do something. But then again, it will also be like, okay, that This 4 years, I mean, one party comes and does something, and then the next time they come and they rip off everything that they did. That's going to be very ugly, and this is what happens in third world country. One president comes in, rips off all the old president did, and it's a cycle of a vicious cycle that continues, and that does not get done anything good for the country or the people. So that's just, we have to be very careful not to going into that what do you call that picture or that timeline of things. So it's going to be very, very important for us to make sure we don't get into that trap. So let's more. So let's talk about more about the what I said about the Matthew Perry's death, right? The famous legendary actor from France. He was found dead in his swimming pool in Brentwood or Beverly Hills or somewhere in Hollywood, in Los Angeles. And Jasveen Sangha was sentenced to 15 years of prison because of supplying him with Ketamine Queen that caused him to die, that caused Matthew Perry to die. So she had pleaded guilty in multiple charges and tried to drug distribution in a network operating in California. So prosecutor argued that she's knowingly sold dangerous, unregulated drugs to a lot of people, including Matthew Perry, and they were requesting her for a maximum sentence. They only got like 15 years. So it also underscores that how it fails of monitoring prescription and illegal ketamine supply around the country. I mean, that's what Kash Patel is, working on. I hope the FBI, tries to do a good job. Good choice to him, and I think he's doing a fantastic job in that part. Let's see that people like him, people like her, get really convicted, and also what do you call this whole drug abuse and drug consumption. And that's something I could talk about, is that last year or beginning of last year, they put out a statistic saying that consumption of alcohols has dropped in a century. And then I also fear that drug consumption could drastically go up in this country, which will be a very, very bad thing. And I also saw today that a lot of people are converting to Catholicism. That's a good sign. People are going towards more God. I think the Gen Zs are thinking, maybe they need God. I mean, it's a good thing. Some people are talking, maybe it was the Pope Leo. And I mean, I'm all in for it. Like, people finding God, it's the best thing that could ever happen to anyone. And it could also improve your life, your health, your mental health. It also comes with, like, I was reading the story that's saying that people don't want anymore to be like, they have it, why am I not having it? Like, jealousy, why is he not having it, why am I not having it, ego, all those things. Maybe we can install people empathy, sympathy, caring, love. Maybe that's something America could take, being strong and not being like all the time strong. So that's one thing. We also saw Rex Heuermann got confesses in Gilgo Beach serial killing, which happened in 2020. He was span of killing 8 women, basically from 1990 to 2010. He has got pleaded guilty in the U.S., shocking the U.S. public that this guy went around and killed a lot of people. And it says the murderer spans decades from 1990 to 2010. And then primary targets were vulnerable victims, including sex workers. And then he had already been in custody since July of 2023, with confession making a major breaking through in long unsolved case. So the case exposes the major investigation failure for 20 years. Come on, guys. I mean, how does we understand? We have a lot of problems here, and then we try to go and fight a war in Iran for Israel. What the hell? I don't even understand. So we also saw Dave Lopes of Dodgers legend pass away. He was a key figure in Los Angeles Dodgers, who also had he was famous for speeding a recording of 557 carrier stolen bases. Like that's like the best, one of the greatest total MLB most valuable baseball in Major League Baseball history. And Lopes helped Dodgers win the 1981 series. That's the first win for the Dodgers. And he also has he's been a very successful what do you call um, a baseball player, and he died at 80 years old. May God rest his soul in peace. Okay, so now the next topic is Trump also got a big pushback on the federal judge increasingly blocking President Trump's executive orders, or he's losing this game basically. From what I can see here, and he also, like, on the tariffs, on the birthright citizenship, I think Donald Trump is losing a lot of things, and he might be losing a lot of things because if he acting, I don't know, unhinged, that's the problem. And then all of a sudden he wants the government wants 1.5 trillion dollars in defense budget. That sparked a big debate. And I don't know, they are proposing for 1.5. We already are in debt in 40 trillion dollars, and if this increases, America is going to go, this debt trap is going to go crazy. The debt trap is not healthy. America's economy will collapse big time, and nobody's going to come and help us because now we have strangled our international relations, we have strangled our global moral values. So who do you think will come and help us when we are suffering economically? Not militarily, we are powerful, but what can we do? At some point we have too much weapons and everything. What do you think if societies have starting to collapse? You cannot fix it by going and fighting another country. That ain't going to work. So it's time for us to think about, what's really needed for America, what's really important for America, rather than going asking another $500 billion for the defense budget, which already is at $1 trillion of defense budget, and then we are already at a debt. Our national debt is at $29 trillion. I don't understand. Like, I understand, like, what the, I don't know. I don't want to curse on TV, but it's just a lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck in America. Only the top 1% controls the 99%, but we are the 99% of people are not happy. If they are not happy, that's a big problem. And that's what we are seeing now. Gas prices, everything skyrocketing. Even though we saw decline in barrel oil prices for the first time in 2020, since 2020, 15%, it went down to $92, I think, a barrel of oil. So in all admits of everything, end of the day, it's general public who are going to suffer. And I hope that someone who can run and fix everything, which I always keep saying, the Texas Senate race, James Tallarico, if he wins the Texas race, he could be the next Clinton of the Democratic Party that could win the election in 2028 and become a youngest president. We need a youngest president. We need someone who can, who can also think about what are the consequences he does, and he has to live with it after his presidency is done. Because the last 15 years, 12 years of presidents we had, Trump and then Biden, they are not going to live long enough to see the impacts of the policies that they have done or stupid things that they have changed. Before COVID, and now going with war in Iran and blah, blah, yada, yada, yada. So we'll see how it continues. I'm optimistic, and I'm always optimistic in America. We will strive and thrive and become a great nation. We are a great nation, and we'll become a greater nation. But it's just we are going to pass through this hurdle, and I hope people wake up. People should wake up and see what's happening in the White House. We need a big change. We need another party, I've been saying this for a very long time. I mean, if Elon thinks about it, maybe this is the right time to launch one, and maybe 2028 we can run, change a lot of things, and just make America stronger again, make America recognizable again in the outside world. Because now, after the post on Sunday, we are morally damaged, like a president talking on genocidal rhetoric. Like, how can we go and talk and say, go and be the peacemakers of the world? We ain't gonna, nobody ain't gonna listen to us. And that's the most we had some moral values. When I was living in Sri Lanka, I looked up to America, saying the land of the free, the democratic country, blah, all those great things. And now I'm looking at it and saying, what are we doing? It's just, I don't know. It's just so sad to look at all those things that has happened. So we also got a military veteran got charged of leaking classified information when Courtney Williams, a former member of United States Army Special Operation Commander, has been arrested and federally charged. She's been accused of leaking classified national defense information to journalists. The leak allegedly included Delta Force tactics and operational procedures and sensitive military details. These materials were reportedly used in 2025 book about Fort Bragg raising major security concern. So Fort Bragg, about the military base. So under the United States law, such actions can carry out severe penalties, including years of federal prison. The case highlighted the risk of insiders. Well, we saw what happened in the New York Times article. So somebody obviously leaked it from the Trump administration. Who else is going to be inside the Situation Room? So anyways, so the 10-point, hopefully ceasefire comes to an agreement with, we still uphold it. And then Israel is striking the shit out of it with Lebanon. That's not good. And we have to control Israel. If not, America will no longer be the superpower country. Maybe at some point we have to be down to Israel. That's not going to work. That shouldn't be the case here. We also saw the global market supply skyrocket after the ceasefire agreement. We also saw a 15% crash, as I told you before, on oil market. The barrel of oil went down to $92. Then it also boosted the global stock market on average of 5% across the board, only with UK being only 2% of the stock market. But the US dollar got more weakened as bond yield fell, and we are also signaling investors are moving back to risky asset. So this could lead into more Bitcoin and crypto wave coming up in the next few months, the next few weeks, because they want to take risk and make more money, basically. So we also saw around 100 ships has been stuck near the Strait of Hormuz that has beginning to move again. Remember, and this every ship that moves, we have to pay $2 million. So Iran is going to basically make $2 billion. Now, this 2 million means for one ship, there's 1,000 ships that have been stuck. So $200 billion. Wow, they're going to make a lot of money in United States dollar in a day, basically, or once this whole ship goes out. Because if you look at about 10 million means 20 million, 200 billion. Yeah, so they're going to make around $2 billion of 2 or 20. I think it's 20 billion, right? Yeah, they're going to make of $2 billion of revenue from the ship that goes on. And imagine, look, a lot of ships cross. How much? Well, let's look at it. How many ships passes in a day through Strait of Hormuz? Let's look at it, and I'll do. So usually before it was 140 ships that passes every day through the Strait of Hormuz. So let's calculate, right? So 150 into $2 million. So Iran is going to make $300 million every day. So in the next 2 weeks, Iran is going to make basically $4.2 billion and possibly more if they strike a deal. And we also saw JD Vance and Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are on their way to the meeting, the ceasefire meeting tomorrow in Pakistan. So hopefully they can come and save this disaster. So the last thing that I want to touch upon is France, my second home, I always call it. Beautiful place. Has finally brought back its 129 tons of gold from storage in New York City that was transferred to aim to balance its increasing financial sovereignty and then reducing reliance on foreign reserve. So they also made money. Gold, of course, is an appreciating asset. So the value of central bank's reserve gets doubled, right? Because it's depending on where the money is. So 129 tons of gold is how much in dollars? How much is 129 tons of gold worth? Let's see. So 129 tons of gold is basically $19 billion. So France got an upgrade of $19 billion of money since they brought back all their golds. So probably like, I don't know, 15 billion euros or something like that. So anyways, thank you so much for joining Every Degree Matters. I'm your host Saffran Minnar. We all hope the ceasefire stays in and President Trump constrains the Israelis to hold the ceasefire, and I hope JD Vance and Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner get to a deal with the 10 points agreement and come to an end to this war that we should have never started. Then we also hope that that the prices, everything comes down. Obviously, it's going to take time. So with that, thank you for joining Every Degree Matters.